UFC Vegas 87 betting and DraftKings show. We have 12 fights this weekend. I'm Jon Kelly. Let's hear the picks. Kicking things off in the lightweight division, we have Abdul Karim Al-Zawadi, a minus 166 favorite. The comeback on Loic Radzhabov is plus 136. And we'll start on the Al-Zawadi side. This guy fought on the Contender Series this past season. He fought George Hardwick in the main event on that week, and he came through as a sizable underdog. He looked excellent in that spot. Really, the only concern with him coming into that matchup is the durability, and that's why I picked against him. I just didn't trust his chin to hold up because he has been knocked out 3 times in his career, and all 3 came inside the first round. He's also been rocked on other occasions as well. So I don't fully trust the durability, but outside of that, the skill set is certainly there. He's got powerful, explosive striking on the feet. He fights with a high fight IQ, and he's got a solid ground game as well. We saw him able to land a takedown in that Contender Series fight. He's done that before as well. And he just seems like a well-rounded guy, trains out of Fortis, and the cardio is on point as well. So he was able to fight a good hard 15 minutes against a good striker on Contender Series. And I just think this one is a pretty solid matchup for him because Radzhabov, he doesn't have the striking skill set that a guy like Hardwick presented on the Contender Series, but he does have a little bit of wrestling. We saw in his UFC debut, he landed 11 takedowns in that fight. And at times, the cardio has been an issue for Radzhabov, and I don't fully trust it, even after that performance, because we saw against Mateusz Rebecki, who basically dog-walked him for that spot and dropped him, and he's been dropped twice in his past 3 fights. I don't really trust the cardio. I don't fully trust the durability, and I just think Al-Zawadi could kind of handle him wherever the fight goes. He's that well-rounded, so I think the line's about right here. I favor the Al-Zawadi side. It's a little concerning just because of that durability, but it's not like Radzhabov is this super explosive type of striker. So I'm going to side with Al-Zawadi here. Al-Zawadi by TKO. I think if he stays on the gas pedal, he can get a finish late in this fight. So we're going Al-Zawadi by TKO. That's the official pick. Which brings us to our next matchup as Ludovit Klein comes in as one of the bigger betting favorites on the card. The line's not out yet, but I do expect him to be right up there as one of the most chalked up favorites on this card. He was originally scheduled to face Joel Alvarez, which was a much more difficult matchup for him. Now we have AJ Cunningham stepping in on short notice, on just a couple days notice here. You recognize the name AJ Cunningham because he fought on last season of Dana White's Contender Series. They basically put him in there against Stephen Wynn, who's a big Fortis guy that they wanted to see again. He's been on Contender Series multiple times, got knocked out by Elon Cruz, and really it was just kind of a softball matchup for Wynn because the biggest skill set and strength of AJ Cunningham is that he's just not going to quit. Because the dude gets hit a ton and he wants to keep fighting. He wants to hang in there, but the skill set is certainly limited. He's one of those guys. He trains with Bryce Mitchell. He's got that country boy farm strength type of grit. But I just don't think the skill set's there, particularly in the striking, because his defense is non-existent. This dude is going to eat some big shots, and facing a guy like Ludovit Klein, who has those really powerful head kicks that he's knocked out a couple people with, I think that could be a big problem here. I think Klein finishes. It's just a matter of how he finishes this fight, but I'm going to go with Klein here. I think he gets it done. I think he gets his hand raised, and it comes inside the distance. We're going Ludovit Klein by TKO. That's the official pick. Which brings us to our next fight in the middleweight division as Christian Leroy Duncan comes in as a minus 298 favorite with Claudio Ribeiro on the comeback at plus 240. And we'll start on the Duncan side. This is a guy who I've kind of been lower on than the market coming over to the UFC. He previously fought over in Cage Warriors, had that big undefeated record, comes over to the UFC, fights Dusko Todorovic. I bet the over in that fight. Todorovic blows out his knee instantly. So unfortunate run there. And then he follows that up against Armen Petrosian. He's a favorite in that spot. I faded him again. I went with Petrosian. Petrosian got it done and sort of derailed the hype train. And then they give him a softball matchup to Dennis Tylulin. Yes, he got him out of there. But to be honest with you, I still have some concerns with a guy like Duncan when he's priced at such a big price tag because I just don't think he's the style of fighter that's going to cover those big numbers without knockout finishes. And yes, he's capable of getting those knockouts, and he's done it for most of his fights. But when it doesn't happen, then the fight starts to play out more like the Petrosian fight, where if you have somebody that is durable, that's going to be there for 15 minutes, and that's a capable striker, I think it's going to give guys like Duncan issues. And I'm not saying that Ribero's one of those guys. I think his skill set is much less than an Armen Petrosian, but he does have power. He swings pretty sloppily, but he does have really sharp leg kicks. That's probably his best asset. So this is one where I think both guys will probably respect each other's power, especially early, because I mentioned it before, I like to target overs in Christian Leroy Duncan fights because outside of the big knockouts, he's not putting a ton of volume out there. Yes, he's got the flashy switch kicks, jumping knees, all that stuff, and that's great. And when he lets his hands go, he's certainly powerful, but he doesn't do that very often. You know, he's a low volume guy. I know statistically it doesn't say that, but that was because those early finishes where he racked up volume, or that Tallulah fight, who's a total punching bag. But the Petrosian fight, that's who he is. Dating back to the regional scene, he's not a high volume guy. So I think this one's kind of be slower pace. I think it has a wide range on DraftKings because while either guy can win by knockout early, if that doesn't happen, then I actually feel like it's kind of like a low tempo kickboxing match. I'm going to side with Duncan because I don't trust the cardio of Rero. He seems a lot more untrustworthy to me, but I do like the over. I think it's currently at a pick'em around the over 1.5. So that's definitely going to be a play for me this week. And I'm going to side with Duncan, probably by TKO, but I'm certainly lower on him than the market seems to be this week. And next fight up, we have Javid Basharat, another undefeated prospect fighting on this card, 14-0. He definitely seems to be the part through his first few UFC fights. Very well-rounded, very technically sound. He's coming off that no contest against Victor Henry due to a groin strike that actually put Henry in the hospital. So he certainly wasn't faking it in that fight. But Basharat, I just think is going to have multiple advantages here. He's a good striker on the feet. Yes, he starts slow a little bit, but the cardio checks out. The ground game checks out as well. He can land multiple takedowns, and he's a solid control grappler, sneaky submission game as well. He's fighting Ayman Zahabi, and you guys know Zahabi doesn't fight super often, and when he does fight, he doesn't put a ton of activity out there. I talked about that with Duncan. Zahabi, much lower volume guy. Yes, he got that first round knockout against Richie Lang, where he basically just landed the perfect kill shot early. I just don't see that happening against Basharat, who's proven to be very durable. I think Basharat's going to be getting the better of the striking exchanges. He's going to be landing more on the feet, and I think he could land takedowns here and potentially control Zahabi as well. So we're going Basharat by decision. That's going to be the official pick, but I don't love his price on DraftKings. There's multiple fighters that are expensive because they're big favorites this week, but I'm not sure they have the ceiling that we're looking for, and I think Basharat falls into that category. Which brings us to our next matchup on the card. We have Vinicius de Oliveira. He's another Contender Series fighter who fought on this past season. The odds aren't fully out for this fight yet. It looks like BetOnline has him at about -140, which I actually thought he might be a bigger favorite here, not because he deserves to me. I just thought that the market, first round, big finish on Contender Series, usually they tend to get inflated. So I was thinking Sopai, his opponent here, might actually be like a big sneaky underdog, but he's getting some well-deserved respect because currently they got De Alvador -140 with Bernardo Sopai on the comeback at +120. And I think that's about what it should be because I actually think Sopai is a pretty good prospect here. Very well-rounded. He's faced okay competition on the regional scene. He's an 11-2 fighter fighting out of Albania. He trains at All Stars Gym in Sweden. And I think he's just a very powerful guy for his size. He's got multiple knockout victories, a big head kick knockout victory that looked nice on the regional scene. And he's also capable of mixing in the wrestling. He's not a super great control grappler, but the cardio seems to check out. He pushes a pace in most of his fights, and he's going to carry that power for 15 minutes. Now, on the Oliveira side, this guy is a very exciting prospect, mainly due to the offense, because he certainly has his limitations. I don't trust the defense. He fights with his hands down, very flashy striker, but he pays the price for it at times. He's been knocked out 3 times in his career, so I don't fully trust the durability or the defense, But man, he's got some serious knockout power. His hands are fast and they're powerful. He's also got some crazy spinning knockouts and stuff like that, kicking attacks. He's a very high variance fighter. So his style's just typically going to lead to a lot of finishes, whether that means he's finishing his opponents or he's being finished because he's getting tagged. So this is one that I think is one of my favorite fights to target on DraftKings because I actually think this might be a decision-heavy card. This is a fight where I have it circled. I think this one ends early, regardless of who wins. So I'm going to look to have exposure to both sides. I'll take the cop-out and go with Oliveira, the favorite, just because I think Sopai, while I do respect his skill set, I just think a couple days notice, short notice, it's a little bit tough here. If he was on a full camp, I honestly might pick him outright. I still think he's got some of the best win equity, if not the very best of any underdog on this card, but I just think it's one where Oliveira is going to give him some serious problems early in the fight, and we'll just see if he's able to deal with those. So I'm going to side with Oliveira, but in terms of DraftKings, I might just split it down the middle or be like 60-40 Oliveira, but I'm definitely looking forward to targeting this fight and seeing how it plays out. Which brings us to our next matchup, as Erik Anders is a minus 410 favorite with Jamie Picket on the comeback at plus 320. And this one, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on. I think it should be all Erik Anders here. Yes, he's getting older. I think he turns 37 in a couple months here, but the dude's an athletic specimen, played college football. I don't think he's going to deteriorate as fast as some of these other aging fighters in the division. So I think he's still pretty solid, and he's been pretty active as well. So it's like, if we're not seeing a huge drop off yet, I have to think that he's mostly the same fighter that he was in his last fight. And if that's the case, he deserves to be a pretty big favorite here over Jamie Picket, a guy that's just never known how to use his length. You know, he's a very low volume kickboxer, might kick a little bit, not going to put a ton of volume out there, doesn't have a huge ton of knockout power. And he is going to mix in some wrestling here and there, but the dude is not a good grappler. I think if he mixes in the wrestling, I expect Anders to get the better of those exchanges. I think Anders is a better wrestler. I think Anders is a better submission grappler. And I think Anders has more knockout power on the feet as well. So I'm going to side with Anders here. Anders by decision. That's the official pick. And kicking off the main card, we have Steven Robert Aaron Ersg, a minus 310 favorite. The comeback on Matt Schnell is plus 250. And we'll start on the Game of Thrones side with Steven Ersg. He's coming off a decision win over Alessandro Costa here. He's more of a grappler. He should have the wrestling advantage in this spot, averages over 2 takedowns per 15 minutes. And he's a pretty slick submission grappler as well. His striking is solid too, though. He's pretty well-rounded. Does have a little bit of power despite only having one knockout victory. And on the flip side, Matt Schnell is a guy who we know skill set wise is very solid. He's got a good jab, solid ground game as well, black belt in jiu-jitsu, multiple submission victories, but the dude has never been able to take a punch. That's been his biggest downfall. He's been knocked out 4 times in his career. He's been finished in 6 of his 7 professional losses. So this is one where it's like, I think skill for skill, Schnell competes here in terms of who's winning minutes. But I also just think it's Matt Schnell. There's enough downside in terms of the durability that he's probably going to get himself finished here. So this is one that I'm going to look to target both sides on DraftKings. I think Schnell is a live dog if he can stay conscious in that first round. But I just don't know if I trust him to do that. So we're going Steven Ersg by TKO. That's the official pick. Next fight up, we have Umar Nurmagomedov, the biggest betting favorite on the card at minus 1,200, with Bekzat Alacon on the way back at plus 750. And Almacon's making his UFC debut on short notice this weekend, and he's getting a tough test because this dude seems like an okay prospect, 14-1 fighter fighting out of Kazakhstan. He's got multiple finishes across his professional career, and he's only fought to decision once in that career. So a lot of those fights are ending inside the distance. This is just a lot to ask for him to come on short notice and face a future contender in the division in Umar Nurmagomedov, a guy that nobody wants to fight in this division. And this is one where I just expect Nurmagomedov to be getting the better of the striking exchanges. He's a very flashy kickboxer, nonstop question mark kicks, very powerful head kicks as well. And then he's got the grappling to fall back on. So I think he's going to get the better of the striking. I think he gets the better of the grappling as well. It's just a matter of if you want to pay all the way up on DraftKings at 9,700, because this is a weird slate where pricing is a little bit wonky this week. I don't know if you have the salary to get up to 9,700, despite the fact that he might just be the safest 100-point score this week. So that's going to be a decision point that we'll talk through on the Thursday DraftKings Deep Dive show at fightnumbers.com for subscribers, where it's one of those situations where you have to factor in, is he not only going to win and crush, but is he going to put up enough to be on an optimal score for this slate? But in terms of the official pick, it's going to be Nurmagomedov by decision. Which brings us to our next matchup in the flyweight division, as Muhammad Makv comes in as a minus 360 favorite with Alex Perez on the way back at plus 285. And this is an interesting matchup because Makv, while he still has that pretty undefeated record, this is a guy that has shown holes even in the UFC. Yes, he's young, he's improving, he's got that solid wrestling game and grappling game. He's been able to finish multiple opponents late, even as recent as his last fight against Tim Elliott, where he was down 2 rounds on 2 judges' scorecards. So he was going to lose that fight and ended up submitting Tim Elliott in the 3rd round there. He also had a close one against Malcolm Gordon that was kind of competitive early. Most people didn't really expect that. The fight against Rafael Filho was a little bit more competitive than people expected as well. So it's like, this guy doesn't really cover these big numbers, and he's had kind of shaky moments against multiple fighters that are kind of worse than a guy like Alex Perez. The downside with Perez is he's super untrustworthy, man. Over the last 12 times he's been booked to fight somebody, 10 of those have been called off for various reasons, and the other 2 he ended up losing. This is a guy, skill set wise, good boxing, solid power, pushes a pace on the feet, and he has that collegiate wrestling background to fall back on. But what you have to worry about with Perez is not only is he going to make the weight, and is he going to make it into the octagon on fight night, but also, is he going to do something stupid and put his head out there or put himself in a bad spot on the mat with Makv, because he's been submitted 5 times in his career. We've seen it time and time again for him. But this is one where it's like, on these type of cards, there's not many dogs that are barking this week. I'm okay with kind of leaning into Alex Perez, even though, and I don't really expect him to win this more times than not, but I do think skill for skill, he's probably better than Makv at this stage in his career in multiple areas. So it's one where I'm going to side with Makv because I just simply don't trust Perez. But in terms of DraftKings, I am going to look to have a little bit more than the field on the Perez side. We're going Makv by submission. That's the official pick. Which brings us to the co-main event in the light heavyweight division, as Vitor Patrino is a minus 298 favorite with Tyson Pedro on the comeback at plus 240. And you guys know me, I'm a big Patrino guy. Cashed a big submission in round 2 ticket for me a couple fights back against Marcin Prachnio. I love this dude, loved him on Contender Series, have loved him since, and I just think this is a guy who's still young, still improving, and he's just got those physical intangibles, those things that you just can't teach. He's got that athleticism cheat code. He's very explosive, very powerful on the feet, and he's shown he can push a solid wrestling pace as well if he needs to. So I just think he's a pretty solid minute winner and a good finisher as well. And then on the flip side, Tyson Pedro is coming off basically one of his best performances. He fought Anton Turkalj in Australia at UFC 293, knocked him out inside the 1st round. The boxing looked crisp there, but historically, Pedro is not a very trustworthy fighter. Yes, he's got some power, he's got some sharp leg kicks as well, and he's going to be dangerous in that 1st round. But outside of that, the cardio's simply not there. The volume isn't there either. And this is one where outside of the 1st round, I just really expect to see this fight favor Patrino down the stretch. And I do think Patrino has the capability to get him out of there. So we're going Patrino by knockout. That's the official pick. Which brings us to our main event. Shamil Gaziev is a minus 162 favorite with Jairzinho Rosenstruck on the comeback at plus 136. And this is your typical heavyweight main event where either guy can win by knockout early, or it might turn into a low volume slop fest down the stretch, which is what we're trying to avoid on DraftKings. So hopefully it's the former and one of these guys go to sleep early, because if that's the case, these guys are going to score very well in the mid-range, whoever ends up winning, obviously. But it's one where I think the market is kind of overvaluing the Gaziev side. This is a guy who fought on Contender Series last season. He fights out of Bahrain, And he seems to have a very solid skill set. He's got explosive, big power on the feet. We saw that against Martin Buday. He was the first guy to finish him, and he did it in his UFC debut. And he just walked him down, gave him no respect. Everything he was throwing was landing. It was fast. It was powerful. But I also think that he's got issues as well. And we even saw that in Contender Series. This guy gets very sloppy. The cardio is completely untrustworthy. And in a fight where you're telling me it has the potential to go 5 rounds, even though I don't think it does, that worries me, especially when you're going up against a proven veteran like Jairzinho Rosenstruck, who's been there and done that. He's fought the best guys in the division, and he's fought multiple main events. Yes, they didn't go the full 5 rounds, but just the experience of being there and having those full camps where you might have to fight 5 rounds, I think that goes a long way here. And then in terms of the skill set, I think Rosenstruck is just as likely to find a kill shot early. This is a guy that has legitimate knockout power. All of his wins have come in that fashion. He's always been a very good technical counter striker. And a guy like Gaziev, who does get sloppy defensively, if he's going to overextend and not give Rosenstruck the respect that he deserves on the feet, I think Rosenstruck can catch him here. So I'm going to lean with the underdog here. It's going to be one for DraftKings. I think you want exposure to both sides for obvious reasons, but we're going with the underdog here. Rosenstruck by TKO. That's the official pick. And as always, guys, fightnumbers.com will have my DraftKings player rankings. It'll have my ownership projections as well. Bunch of other stuff. Be sure to check it out. Like the video on your way out. Be sure you're subscribed to the channel for future videos as well. Best of luck this weekend, and we'll see you next time.